Okay, welcome, family, for another episode of Next Narrative 313. I'm Phaedra, and I'm here with my family, Richard, Patrice, and Dwayne. And today we are ready to kick it off. I did want to take a moment to spotlight some specialness that's going on in the room. I have the privilege and the pleasure of being the baby sister to this group of dynamic individuals. And because they are making such boss moves, there's some things we can disclose today and some stuff we cannot. But I do want to put it to my big brother Richard, because he out here with the plush labels now. He a Gucci man now.
Gucci gang,
I just want to introduce the goodness, the greatness, Mr. Grundy, ladies and gentlemen. He gonna tell us a little bit about what he has on the floor.
Yep. Thank you. So we received, we were named one of the 2021 Gucci Changemakers. Journey was, and it comes with a grant that helps us to build out the House of Technology, which is going to be on the campus of Mary Grove. It's a space that will hold technology programs, classes, workshops, whatever, for the entire family. And also just a space for like-minded people to kind of gather within that community as well, to kind of bounce ideas off of, talk through problems and solutions together. So we're excited about it. We also got a grant from the Neighbor Hub with the Detroit Regional Chamber and GM to kind of build that out. So they kind of went back to back. So we're, I'm excited about building out that space before the end of 2021. We'll have a home now where everybody is welcome. So yeah, thank you.
All right, amen. How we doing?
When are you sending us checks, Rich?
Checks?
Yeah, when are our checks coming?
Yes, it needs to be on payroll. I am your chief strategy officer right here.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
Dinner today, Rich.
When I say we'll figure it out, I don't mean like we'll figure it out. Not really. I mean, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out for real.
That's your head lobbyist.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Dr. Johnson is your head lobbyist. You want any legislation passed? You want every black kid in America?
Hey.
That's
good friends to have. Good friends to have.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm so proud of y'all.
Yeah, real talk.
We are proud of you.
Just out here being catalysts for the community.
Y'all doing your thing.
Speaking of which, considering that Journey is an education-based organization, I think we really want to kick into something that happened here in our home state, the state of Michigan. There was a little hiccup. Schools were supposed to open back up March 8th. We saw a little delay. And I want to open that up to the group and talk a little bit about what changes have you seen? Is it affecting you? Have your children gone back to school? What have you heard back from your villages? Where do we go from here?
I'll start off just because right around at the same time that they announced that they were opening up school, we had a couple launches for programs starting at the same week. And it's funny because there's a preference to run in-school programming, but then I have a responsibility to kind of look out for my instructors as well, and what they're willing to do, and instructors that I'm comfortable with working with, and they kind of they wanted to go virtual, and I
Oh no.
Okay, so we'll definitely get Rich back in. I can jump in real quick.
Okay.
Hold on, I see Dr. Johnson want to get in.
No, I was gonna say Gucci better be paying them bills.
Here we go, right here. He right back. Right back.
Yeah, I felt more comfortable virtual as well. So it was funny because out of nowhere we have been planning this program that kids from multiple schools are coming to. We had been planning it to be virtual, and the time that it starts is kind of dependent on, we have to look at all of the different bill schedules from the different schools. So when it happened, I'm like, well, I'm glad that we planned it to be virtual because kids get out of school at different times for the program. What I've seen from just people kind of commenting, I don't think that all schools were ready for virtual schools, at least in the Detroit school district. And I can't speak on other school districts. I can. They weren't ready either. I've heard even from my best friend and his wife, and I'm actually the godfather to their son. he stayed virtual, but some of the other kids went into school, and you know, now his day is kind of thrown off. So that's the things that I've been hearing so much. It seemed like they weren't ready to go back to have in-person schools. That's just my kind of feeling. And I'm not going to touch on the topic that Italy and a couple other countries just went back into lockdown or whatever, but you know, we can go from there.
I can jump in. I have a 7-year-old, Robin. She's actually been on the show. With that in mind, like she's been at home since the pandemic, since March 13th of last year. And there are kids, her actual school, there are children who go there for a learning center. So all of DPS schools didn't open back up. They opened up specific schools within specific neighborhoods and staff those because all of the teachers didn't want to return or couldn't return for whatever the reason. For the children who are in there every day, I think in a city like Detroit, that is it's necessary because it is absolutely absurd for you to think that a child who is 7, 8, or 9 years old will be able to learn in an environment where they may be being raised by a functioning illiterate parent or an elderly family member who ain't been to school in 60 plus years. Like all of those things being into consideration, but also keeping in mind that if there are teachers, if there's administrators who don't feel comfortable, who don't feel like the district has done their due diligence to make returning to school safe, I get it. I was just talking with one of my co-executive. I'm a part of an executive leadership group, and one of the executives in there, his wife is a second grade teacher. She works out in Brighton. Brighton been in school since August.
Right.
Brighton shut down in March. They did what they needed to do in June. When school started back up in August, they opened back up, and they got 30 kids in the classroom. Ain't no social distancing happening there. But for whatever reason, the district made the teachers feel comfortable enough that not only could they return to school, but they could return to school with 30 plus kids in the room. UPS ain't doing that. They are violating. They're not following CDC regulations for how those schools should be disinfected or cleaned. I mean, we could talk about what the schools look like prior to the pandemic if you were to walk into one.
Just to be clear, Brighton isn't following the rules either, right?
I'm not sure.
Right, but I mean, 30 kids in one classroom.
Absolutely not.
Is that possible? Right?
I don't think that's possible. No.
But I'm sure they had their own rules. You know, they've been following.
Man, yeah.
So I'll jump in for a minute. So you know, I'm a father. I have a 10-year-old, 4th grader, whose school decided to go back. He's staying virtual, and it has kind of thrown some things off. But I think, you know, I get it. I understand why, you know, from an administrative perspective, you want to go back. I understand, you know, some kids are better off there than they would be trying to learn anywhere else. So it's just kind of one of those things. It's kind of it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. You can, you know, still continue to spread, and schools aren't ready to be open just for, you know, did you, you know, hire more sanitation staff? Did they get, you know, training? Are there more bathrooms for the kids to go to? Like that kind of stuff. Like, we know that hasn't changed and we know that hasn't happened, but I understand why they got to be there. Mine ain't going to be there until, you know, things have stepped up. But fortunate enough for him, he has a family that can, you know, afford to be able to do that for him. You know, my heart goes out to those who can't. And so I understand why they do need to be there. As far as like, you know, teachers and administration and policy and all that stuff. I mean, I do understand we do gotta keep going. It is March, so you know the schools will be out again soon in June. So I mean, we will be out, and it will be summertime, and we'll be ready to do it again, you know, in the fall. So it's tough. As a parent, you know, I would love for him to be back with his buddies that are in class, but he's not the only one of his friends that, you know, didn't go back. So you know, you can find some solidarity there too.
Yeah.
So here, I'm not a parent, but I am an educator. And I think that what concerns me is, why did we move to transition in March when, to Dwayne's point, schools are going to be out in June? I think the strategy should have been vaccinating all of our teachers and then prepping for next school year, right? Because you don't know. Because here's the thing. Michigan was one of the only states in the last week that had a spike in COVID cases, right? So it doesn't make sense for you to say we're going to open schools back up when you just had another spike. So I don't know that we're moving as methodically as we think we are, or if we're just getting if our mood is changing because we've got our fake spring, right? It's nice outside. So people, think that things are changing. People want to be outside. They want to be more active. They're coming out of their winter hibernation. And I think that's affecting some decision making, because I don't think at this time it's probably in our best interest to reopen schools. I think we have to continue to monitor how the vaccine is going to be rolled out. Your mayor just said he's not doing Johnson & Johnson. I don't know if he's reneged on that now, because I was waiting on Johnson & Johnson. I was like, I'm already scared of needles. Let me get that one dose, hit it and quit it.
Yeah.
And be done, right? So it would have made more logical sense for you to have a strategy on vaccinating teachers before the next school year rolled around, as opposed to rushing them into the classroom when you don't even you don't have herd immunity amongst your teachers. So you put teachers at higher risk. And then what will happen if you let those teachers back in, people catch COVID, it spreads, and then you run the risk of not starting a strong school year in the fall when we are supposed to reach herd immunity.
I think you're making all of, like you saying what needs to be said and what seems obvious. I'm gonna tell you something that happened that was kind of funny. So maybe like 3 weeks ago, I went to go get it. It was a Friday night, and I went to this burger bar, supposedly in Farmington, not too far from my house, to just to pick up a meal. So I pulled up. The parking lot was full, and I'm like, oh, why is the parking lot full? Where are all these people that parked out here? So, and I've never been to this place. So I walk in, and I've never seen so many baby boomers partying on a Friday night, like a Metallica concert had just ended or something like that in the bar. And I'm number one, I'm the only person that looks like me. And then I'm the only person that got a mask on. I'm like, I know we ain't got nothing in common here. I know we voted two different directions. And when you said that, Phaedra, about Brighton, that's kind of what I thought about. Like, some people are just going to do what they say they're going to do, and not do what they want to do, regardless of good advice. And I think that may be what happened with DPS kind of getting, I don't want to say they got forced, but you know what I mean? They weren't prepared to kind of make this quick switch. And I think that's kind of what happened or whatever. So
I think what we fail to realize, coronavirus was a rich and middle class disease. Like, the poor and lower class still had to go to work, and we don't exist in a country where there's intergenerational living. So there's a grandparent at home all the time to take care of the child, or the family has enough to hire help to look up after the children while the parents work. Our public education system is that. It is daycare in some sense for families. So I think in a city like Detroit, where the median income is like $27,000, then people gotta go to work. They can't live off unemployment. And with that being the case, they need someplace to send their children. I couldn't imagine leaving my 7-year-old at home by herself while I'm trying to go out and work. Like, no, this boy will be burned to the ground. But with that being said, I think that there was opportunity. Like, it's been a year, and I think there was opportunity for some growth to happen, and I haven't seen that. Like, I'm okay with us have started off rocky. Like, coronavirus kind of pimp slapped all of us around a bit. And with that in mind, I give you some grace for not having it all together. I wouldn't have expected for you to anticipate something like that. However, you can't tell me that you don't have the intellectual talent within the district to have rolled out a better plan than what you have presently. You still got kids who don't have access to devices, or reliable internet nonetheless. Or, like, I have to go to my baby's school 2 or 3 times a month, if I'm being honest, to pick up stuff, books, resources. She done won something. Like, everybody don't have it. I think those are things that we need to consider moving forward if this is going to be the new normal.
Yeah, 27,000. We rounding up or it went up. I didn't know it went up. Patrice, did you say that the we're one of the only states that spiked, or is it our school district that spiked, or
Oh no, it was the state that spiked.
the states? Okay, I haven't even heard that, and I live in the state. That's crazy.
Yep, I thought too. We are
I walk around
actually
scared.
yeah, we're number one on the list of most infectious now. We had 3,000 new cases, I guess, just as of yesterday.
It's ghetto here.
Well, I got my first shot.
So tell us about that a little bit. How was that? I haven't been fortunate enough to get one yet. How's that experience?
So,
if you don't mind sharing.
Yeah, I'm gonna start from the beginning. My dad has been on our head, not just my head. He's kind of asking my fiance if she getting the shot. My mother, who he's not married to, my sister, he's checking everybody like, yo, are y'all getting the shot or whatever? So then I took him to get the shot. We live in Southfield. And he was under the assumption. Now, I do think that Detroit been handling a business with the shot, right? Because he was under the assumption, and everybody's under the assumption that if you take somebody to get the shot, a senior, then you get the shot as well. And it's not like that in Oakland County. So he was, he's been kind of pressuring us, and I get it because he lives at home by himself or whatever. You know what I mean? I think his health is kind of deteriorated, not because he's had COVID, but because we are conditioned to stay inside of the house, which we should, or whatever. We're getting less sunlight. We're moving a lot less than we used to, or whatever. So, he wants everything to get back to normal. But I wasn't able to get the shot when I took him. He was happy. He had no complaints. I went to get it, like maybe they moved me up the wait list. Maybe a couple weeks later, I got it this week. I got the Pfizer. I didn't have a choice. He got Moderna. I got Pfizer, and I think it's probably just what they had in that day or whatever. And I didn't feel anything. I went in there. I feel like they had some Army reserves or some type of military that's kind of helped to facilitate that. And it before I looked up, it was done. They didn't even give me a Band-Aid, but, I sat down for 15, 20 minutes, and then I went on about my day. So, yeah, it was easy. I'm glad to get the shot. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Go ahead. No. I'm fully vaccinated. I took the Moderna. I took it for two reasons. One, my baby's mental health has been a roller coaster since she's been home. She's an only child, and that isolation really did something to her. Like, I got to make sure that she's able to. I need her mental health to be okay. So I have to figure out how to reintegrate her into the world post-COVID. If I'm going to do that, I want to protect myself. Second, I have elderly grandparents who essentially, like, if you are not vaccinated, you cannot come in this house. And for me, y'all been down there for a year and ain't nobody laid eyes on y'all. I don't know what's going on. Like, I'm not riding with that. So if that, more so for my family, because if I'm being honest, I'm perfectly okay with living in my little chateau and door dashing and using the Kroger app to buy my groceries and just being in my bubble. But I know that I have people around me that I love and care about, and they have health concerns that I need to be considerate of.
Yeah.
Let me jump in. So I'm starting to see, an interesting trend among our people, especially our demographic. So it's starting to make me think that the vaccine is really starting to be kind of like what somebody mentioned earlier, kind of a class thing. So people who I know in my circles are starting to get it. People who are, similar social economic background are getting it. Our old people are getting it. But there's still a large percentage of our community that either, don't think it's real. I'm not going to do it because of conspiracy or whatever. So I'm starting to see that the lines really divide along class lines of who's getting it. My mom called the other day and said, should I get it? My wife is thinking, more and more about getting it. And just the narrative around it, I think is changing. I think it's also a political narrative around it too. If you were a Democrat, your team won. They're saying this is our strategy to get it out. So if you were part of those ranks, I think you feel a lot more comfortable about it than before. So I think it's a lot of things that play about it. I'm interested in continuing to see, what happens with it. I know I want to kind of see how it plays out, and I'm being more encouraged by the people I see around me do it, because like Phaedra said, I think for a young person, 7 to 10 or however old you are, you have a want and a need to be out, and I think you have to have a world. So you got to do what you got to do to protect yourself. So as we move forward, I envision, especially people among our class, you see people traveling, you see people saying I'm fully vaccinated. So I think the conversation is really, really changing, and it's even interesting. If we got on here, or if you rewind a couple of episodes, how we talked about it then, we may even be talking about it differently now. So I think more information has come. I think it kind of, has been in play in our community a lot. And so, I love to see us, taking care of ourselves if we think that's the right way to go.
Yeah.
I think that is the case. Oh, go ahead, Patrice.
I have a couple stats to share. I have to look this up. Okay.
Yes, doctor. Yes, madam doctor.
Dr. Johnson.
So March 1st, CDC data based off of race on who received the vaccine, the first dose. 2/3 were white, 65%. 7% were Black, 5% Asian, 2% American Indian or Alaska Native. So white folks getting the vaccine at a higher rate since the beginning of this month, at least the first one. So I think, and then we also looked at what was happening across the country in predominantly Black cities, and we found that the timing that it took to get to some of these vaccine places were difficult. So in Louisiana, Texas, and Alabama, vaccine hubs were missing in predominantly Black and Hispanic communities. And then the driving distance to those centers were mostly in white spaces. Vaccination registration systems were online. So some folks who don't have reliable internet access were not able to sign up online to get them. So you saw CVS just came out with a ton of online, appointments.
Yep.
So, and then the last thing was that Black Americans disproportionately work frontline jobs, essential jobs, are door dashing, and do not have the time to take off work to get the vaccine. So just some facts.
Any response to those numbers?
I got a question
Or
after
narrative.
anybody's response.
I'm not surprised. I think that there's quite a bit of mistrust within our community. Also, when you look at what the criteria is for to receive the vaccine, very few of us fall within that those things. One of which being a K through 12 educator. I think in the state of Michigan, only 19% of the entire state of Michigan's educational team, state employees, are African American. If you talking about from all the way down to near Toledo to all the way up to the UP, the African American pool is only 19%. So that automatically rules out, even though Detroit is super Black, the rest of the state doesn't look like that. So how are we making this accessible to those communities, even if we're just talking about our elderly? So I'm not surprised.
Yeah. So the first question I had, which maybe it should be my second question, but I know that there was 100. Was it that 100 million people should be vaccinated in the first 100 days? Is that what the?
And he did it yesterday. I think he hit the mark yesterday.
Okay, so I saw was it 100 people vaccinations or 100 shots? That's what I'm kind of confused about now, because I think he did it in half the time, or at least there was 100 million shots in half the time. But I'll need to look at it and read the fine print to see if it's actually 100 million people that have been vaccinated or whatever. But it looks like it happened in half the time or whatever. But I want to see that. The second thing is, I know I don't know if we have any local politics on the slate today or whatever, but Phaedra just kind of made me think about when she mentioned mistrust with our community, and even the fact that Duggan kind of insinuated that with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which is interesting, and to the point that the White House, I probably had to step in or send a phone call hey, that's a little bit of strong language. Can you rescind that or change that up a bit? So yeah.
Okay, so I think that there's a lot for us to consider regarding education, particularly what education needs to look like moving forward, because COVID isn't going anywhere. But I think another thing that we have seen in addition to this changing way with vaccinations and things like that. We saw something a little unconventional regarding pop culture. So Coming to America actually aired since our last episode. And I think one of the things we want to highlight is the fact that much of this all black cast had to come together to, I guess, share space with each other in the post-COVID world. And not necessarily that that's regarding the vaccinations, but I do want to talk about the collective greatness that film was. Regardless of whether or not you think it was a good film, all them black people coming together to get a check to entertain y'all during a pandemic, give them their flowers.
Yeah.
Please, thank you. Okay. I'm opening it up to the group. I was just happy to see all that melanin. Like, I felt really good. But all them black people, like, literally, that's what I think about when that's what I envision when I say, like, a black ecosystem. Like, that was a black man's house that they recorded this all black casted movie that was directed by a black person. Like, yeah, this is all right. I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Like, regardless of whether or not you liked it, if you watched it, guess what? You gave them some money.
Yes, take all the money. I think for me, I didn't judge the movie based off of, Oscar-worthy nomination or whatever. I judged it based off, I think it gave us some black joy, like to see all of those similar characters back in the same space. When you think about like the top 5 movies that you love, Coming to America is one of the greatest movies of our time, right?
Easily.
It is. So I didn't expect it to be like, and of course there's always apprehension, like, oh, you can't mess with the first one, right? Like, but I think it was more of a joy movie than it was like substantive in the way that maybe we think of the first one, right? So to your point, all of the black excellence, seeing those characters merge with some new faces was great. I had no complaints.
I was looking forward to the movie probably for the prior 2 weeks. Even considered buying something special to wear to watch it at home. Wasn't like I was about to get on Facebook or nothing like that. And so I was really looking forward to it. I fell asleep. Some of that is on the movie, some of that is on me working too hard, but whatever, we're not gonna touch on that. But I think it was dope. I think Rick Ross's role was pretty funny, and I think Wesley should get a spinoff in something because he played the hell out of that role. And then when I found out that because I remember them showing a picture of Will Smith and Martin, like taking a picture next to them while they were all filming at the same time, and that was dope. I thought that was in California or something like that. I didn't realize that was in Georgia at Tyler Perry Studios. Like, that's like next level to me. I feel like it's next level or whatever. So like, as you guys said, like, it really is a lot of joy. And as far as the ecosystem, it's an ecosystem moment for me.
Oh yeah. So I watched it. It was I got kind of geeked how off of Rich. I saw something he posted. I was like, oh yeah, okay, I'm gonna really mess with it because I was like, oh yeah, it'd be cool. I watch it. Growing up, that was one of my favorite movies. I thought the movie was really good. I think they did a really good job. It was great to see everybody. I thought it reminded me of like Back to the Future kind of thing. He was able to leave the past, but add to it. One thing I took from it though, I think more than anything else, I think the movie was on time in that. When else have we seen a time where somebody from the continent wanted to make it right with somebody from the motherland? I mean, from U.S. and kind of that African and African American vibe, and they kind of reconciled it. We got to laugh at each other. We got to feel each other's pain. We got to really be one. Like, usually we divide. But I think one of the lasting legacies I think of that movie was Akeem going over to Queens and finding him a babe. I think that even showed him to have to be a bit more understanding of what an African American's plight was. So even to go find his son, my babe African American. So I can understand that vibe. So I really like how they were able to make that right, and I also like how they were able to play along gender lines as well to say, okay, well, my son can be this, but my daughter who's trained and knows this can be this as well. So I think it was a coming of age for some of our gender roles. It was a coming of age for some of our cultural kind of things. So I thought it was good, and those kind of things. I think it was a movie that stood by itself. Don't compare it to the last one. It's not that. But it's perfect for right now, and I think those are the things that I took away from it.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, Rich, I think you should go first because I'm gonna say one bad thing.
Okay. I'm gonna say it's not necessarily bad, but just something that Dwayne made me think about. So I did kind of compare it to Black Panther, and I felt like Black Panther kind of had us spoiled in that, you know, of what we saw or whatever, and I didn't see that in this movie of what a black nation could be or whatever, or what it is, because Black Panther, neither one of these movies, you know, they're both fiction. But I didn't see the gender part that you said, Dwayne. I didn't necessarily I saw it obviously in both movies, but I didn't connect it that that's something that was consistent in both of them, and that they were really supported. Like Black women saved the day in the Coming to America with the you know, getting Wesley Snipes together, and that same thing happened in the first movie as well. I mean in Black Panther. So that's something I didn't notice until you just said that. So
I think, am I on mute? No, I think that there are 2 times I've seen this happen in the last 6 months where we have, speaking of gender roles, where we have glanced over the, how can I say this? We've glanced over sexual harassment that's happening to men. So in Bridgerton, everybody loved Bridgerton, but there is technically a rape scene where Daphne, the main character, rapes the Duke, right? Which is how she tries to get pregnant. Same thing happens in Coming to America. She drugged him. Like, y'all didn't, I literally was like, oh my God, like, we just gonna glance over this to the point to where he now has a son he knows nothing about for 30 years. We just glanced over that. Like, so we just gonna let Black men be just.
That's interesting.
So on
One
behalf
negative
of
thing.
the Association of Black women, we apologize. I'm as a Black woman, I didn't even recognize that was what was happening. Like, and really, like, if I'm thinking about it in Bridgerton, I was mad at the Duke. Like, nigga, how you gonna lie? I'm sorry. My bad. Pretty much also like, what happens after this is your fault because you lied to me. Like,
Yeah.
Not that so, but now that I see, that's not an excuse. Like, wow, no, she needs to be held accountable for her actions. And then Loki, wow, that's crazy. Okay, all right,
yeah,
yes,
that's interesting there. That's interesting there. I gotta think about that one.
That's thought provoking, really though.
Yeah, I gotta think about that one.
So next week.
So
that's some
bring
good
that
stuff.
topic back full circle. But I do want to say, like, okay, so with such a thought-provoking movie that was like centered around unity and like really conglomerating all of these acting styles and like individual backgrounds, because the movie was a melting pot of so many different types of performers, so many different types of actors. One of the newest things in pop culture is this connection between Anderson Paak and Bruno Mars, like yet another melting pot experience where you see 2 very dynamic individuals come together to create something even greater. Like, I low-key wasn't even expecting nothing like that. But when it happened, it was like, this is a vibe. Like, let me see what y'all come up with this. Have you guys had the opportunity to listen to the album?
Yeah, let me jump in on this one, please. So like, Anderson Paak is one of my favorite artists, like, of all time. Like, that's my guy. And Bruno Mars is a very popular artist. When Bruno left, I was wondering, I was like, man, you know, where Bruno gonna go and find his inspiration now? You know, he did it last time, did time for it, where he gonna go? Not thinking he was about to go to my boy. You're not thinking gonna get mine, you know, one of my favorite artists. So at first I was kind of, you know, that's my guy. Like, when everybody go to their favorite artist, I go to Paak. And to see that happen, at first I was taken aback. You know, I don't messing with it. But I watched the video. The music is good. It's good to see an artist like Anderson Paak get that kind of platform. And I think a similar thing happened. You know, I was a big Kendrick Lamar fan too. And then Damn came and he went, you know, through the roof. So it's cool to see the artists that I think are very, very talented, and really bring something to the culture, to get the platform that they have. The music is good. You know, where else can you see 2 musicians, you know, play the 70s stuff? I'm all for it now. I can't wait to see how big it can be and see, you know, where Paak can go after this.
Richard, Patrice, have you guys had the opportunity to listen to the song? It's called Leave the Door Open.
I have played it while cleaning and cooking over and over and over again. It's such a nice gentleman song. I'm feeling it. I mean, to your point, man, like thank you for doing something like, I mean, something original and classic. Like I have high expectations for them right now. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, I listened to it. It's dope. I'm a Anderson Paak fan, not a huge Bruno Mars fan. It made me think though, like how did they come up with that collaboration during the pandemic? And it made me think like what are their lives like during the pandemic or whatever. There was Anderson Paak like a 15-minute or 20-minute set that he did that was on YouTube and Instagram and everything. And I've played that. We set that up like a concert downstairs or whatever in front of my family a couple times. And I just wonder what it's like for them to be able to kind of do that collaboration. And I think you guys mentioned the word joy earlier, and that's the type of music that they make or whatever. So I just kind of wonder like how they feel. Do they feel restricted during this time or whatever? Obviously not if they're able to come with those type of collaborations though.
That's good stuff. I also think I think they made a really good chess move. So, if you've been alive over the past year, you saw The Weeknd last year. He took it to the 80s. Like he made us feel like, a lot of us were kids again, listening to a lot of that music, and they say, well, what else can we do? Well, we're going to take it to the 70s. So it was a nice chess move to see, okay, we having this nostalgia thing play out in pop music. And just so happen you get, two really good musicians who know how to interpret, that kind of music. So I think it was a dope move on that part. And I also wonder, we see, in hip hop, we see, Future and Drake, or we see Young Thug and whoever he did, an album where they did one together. Chris Brown and whoever, young rapper he did one with. So they're taking kind of that vibe and bringing it to pop culture. So anytime, people are bringing, urban culture back to the middle, they're bringing a little hip hop with it. They're bringing a little bit of the 70s. They're bringing in a lot. So I think just in the context of, pop music in general, I think it's an interesting place. It gives so many musicians after them a chance to go, a quick aside, even to, one of the challenges, they played a song from the 50s, Put Your Hand on My Shoulder. So music is really getting interesting. I love, music from that era. So it's cool to see music kind of reinventing itself, and you getting a taste of some of the best era of music, today. And then from the, The Weeknd doing this stuff in the 80s and these guys in the 70s.
I am very happy. I think that one of the things I love most about artists and their ability to create is that when they see like nothing's an obstacle for them. Like if you saw with like the versus battles, they was like, all right, we can't do concerts. Cool. It's just going to be the two of us and our craft on the stage. So I was very happy to see what Bruno Mars and Anderson Paak came up with. I really enjoy Anderson Paak. I am a big in my field kind of a girl. So I feel like his albums really embody that.
Can I get something off my chest?
Yes, you sure can.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Beyonce is now the most decorated artist in Grammy history. However, I was excited to celebrate that win for her, but I felt the type of way that she never had Album of the Year or a song, those bigger category pieces. And I really want to talk about intersectionality as it relates to Beyonce, both from a gender and a race perspective, because she is like the epitome of excellence, period. Like her work ethic, everything that she puts out. And you mean to tell me you would give someone, and I'm no shade to Taylor Swift, but Taylor Swift has won Album of the Year 3 times. And sometimes I look at Taylor Swift as Basic Amy. Y'all know Amy, who was elected to the Supreme Court. I'm like, that's Basic Amy. Leave me alone. That's Basic Amy. And here Beyonce is like, can run and belt out all of these notes in one breath, can give you a 2-hour show and don't need nothing extra, just perfection. So it kind of bothers me that, and I think it says a lot, that the Academy is like, you have the most, but you don't have the top. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, it just, So I just wanted to vent to y'all about how I felt, because I was going to write an op-ed about it, but I got too busy. But I really wanted to say it says a lot to me that I think the last woman to win Album of the Year was Lauryn Hill, woman of color, I should say. And Miseducation was dope, right? I still listen to it. But I feel like the creativity and the artistry, both with Self-Titled and with Lemonade, deserved an Album of the Year. And every time I feel like she loses to some album that I've never even heard of.
So did it ever occur? I'm sorry. I would like for you to finish your thought.
I'm done.
I'm gonna say this, and I'm as a member of the Beehive. Come for me if you choose. There's a reason why the albums of the year that win don't resonate with you. There's a reason why Beyonce resonates with you. The people who sit on the Academy's award board don't look like you. So of course the music that they think is choice or supreme is not going to be yours. But if we're going to talk about what they actually wrote a story about this, about how like whatever the Black equivalent of the Grammys is, like is it the Image Awards or like whatever the Black Music Award is, Beyonce has won like multitudes and has never been to one of the award shows. And it's like, okay, well, we want to give you these flowers because we acknowledge that Lemonade was an amazing, like, we're never going to call it an album. It was just a composition of art. Like, if you actually purchase the physical vinyl, the print, the decorations, the choice of like artistry, the photos that she used, like the images that she portrayed for each disc, all of that was super intuitive. All of that was super on point. Ain't no middle-aged white man gonna feel that. He ain't gonna understand what it's like to have Blue Ivy, the daughter of billionaires now. Her parents are billionaires. The Black daughter of billionaires. Like her mama used to do, her grandma did hair. Her grandma was a service worker for years. Like that is amazing. Like the fact that they took pictures of that young girl in a cotton field that her parents probably own now, that slaves used to pick cotton out of. Like that is so profound. That's not gonna resonate with a white man. So I don't expect for them to give her that honor. Like, yes, Beyonce, thank you for taking home 28 of those. Thank you for receiving one with your baby. Like, how dynamic of you to have put her in the credits so that y'all can share this together. Like, not only is she cheering for you, this is something that she gets to take home. Like, she gets to grow up with this memory. That is amazing. But I don't expect the Academy to give Beyonce what she deserves. Why?
But I think that makes me angry, that I know she deserves all of it. So I think the person that has the most is 31. She should have had 2-3 album of the year. So she should technically have 31, 32. So, and to your point, I also hear your argument, Phaedra, around they are not the standard, right? They shouldn't be the standard to us. But they, in the larger scope of the world, that a Grammy is supposed to be the standard. An Oscar is supposed to be the standard, right? And I am struggling with that level of validation for our art, and that we don't need that validation for our art. But it pisses me off because I feel like she could top all of them jokers. And I'm done.
I think that is actually a good point to make this transition on. Because we want to talk about how underappreciated Black women are and how much we devalue and try to, I guess, mismanage Black girl magic to the point where the Black girl discounts what she has inside of her, but people trying to steal that. Let's talk about the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, ladies and gentlemen, okay? And Madam Auntie Oprah Winfrey, okay? Oh, she said we can't call her auntie, didn't she? Okay, we gonna TT Oprah, okay. One, let's just talk about what's going on, about how, first of all, I couldn't imagine, like, Megan, sis, like, if you're listening, well, I'm so sorry. Like, not only is bringing a life into this world such a profound experience, like, to have to go through that and worry and have somebody feel as boisterous as to ask you about the shade of your child. More importantly, it must really be like, as a Black woman, I know how many times I've been tried in spaces, and it's like, Phaedra, if you cut up in here, you're gonna be exactly what they thought you was. To be in Buckingham Palace and have a member of the royal family try you to where you have to button up your Black girl. And for those of you listening, y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. This lady had to button up her Black girl to the point where her and her husband had to electively like uproot their family. This man shed himself of all of his military honors, all of his wealth, all of his inheritance, land, and titles. Like, we're still calling them the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, but that's technically not their title anymore. They're getting ready to get it to somebody else. I really want to take some time to put some thought into the fact that after they left, Tyler Perry, again, we want to give you your flowers while you're here, sir. Provided them with security and a safe place to stay when the royal family refused to. Let's talk about how Oprah leveraged her nearly 5-decade career to provide a space for them to tell their stories. Like, she really was very thoughtful in how she presented to this message and allowed the Duke and Duchess to lead their own narrative. I really want to open this up to the group and hear some of the things that you guys were able to take away from this experience and kind of where your heads are now.
Okay, I'll jump in real quick. I'll be real quick about it. I think what I think I took from it the most, I think you kind of mentioned, was the fact that hands that once were the victim of the Mother England was there to save her kids and her woman. You know what I'm saying? And his woman. When we have talent like that, to have a compound that's suitable enough for people who just left Buckingham Palace, but for you to have that at your disposal, for Oprah to leverage her media empire, for them coming from, the level that they sit on, to look at it as something that they will be willing to do. That just speaks to us as a people and how we've risen, and where there are key figures. So, just shout out to O, and shout out to Tyler Perry for being able to play in those waters. And how we do, we gonna make sure you good. That's just what we do. That's in us, maybe even to a fault sometimes. But I'm glad that we had people there, and still able to provide it at the level they're used to getting it. So now you have to come to my one bedroom apartment. We staying in something that's still similar to kind of what you used to staying in. So I'm glad that we were able to have that.
So I don't really watch Tyler Perry movies like that, right? And it's whatever. But so the last time I've noticed him is when he won, I think, the award at the Oscars a couple years ago and gave that speech. Was that the Oscars? Probably, or whatever. It's worth Googling or YouTubing. The second part, when I learned that, because he talked about how he was building his studio and how far he's come or whatever. The second part was the Coming to America, and the Martin and Will movie. And then here, just like in the, what I'm saying? Just, you can stay at my house. You can have my security or whatever. He is he's a bad man for real. You know what I'm saying? Like, if that's the only, that outside of his movies, that's the only instances of when he's popped up. And those are like the pinnacle of just like doing the very best or whatever. So I don't even know if hats off to him is the right term for removing security or whatever. So you talked about how he gave those things up, Phaedra, but his mother or whoever, the royal family, whoever, you know what I mean, put them all in the same bucket. They removed security and the money. They left them out there to dry with a child. That's a whole nother level of evil. It's no other way to cut it up. Pierce Morgan, go to hell 10 times. And then I kind of looked at, so I read an article or whatever, and I saw how they got after when they had nothing, they went to get the contract, I think with Netflix or Hulu or something like that, for like $100 million, got the contract with Spotify to get $10 million or whatever. Like it was nice to see how they bounced back or whatever from that. And they came to tell a story, right? And to tell a story how you didn't want to make your grandson a prince. that y'all got some explaining to do. The hell with the European or the London or the England press. We're gonna get down to the bottom of it because we got social media now. So
And I'm being a little petty right here. Y'all thought that sis wasn't about that bag. She had a job before he married her, okay?
Exactly.
Sis gave up her job to come be a housewife,
Exactly.
okay? The hustle is in her. It is there.
Pierce Morgan, go to hell.
Dr. Johnson?
I agree with Rich. Pierce Morgan can go to hell, and that's it.
Okay. One of the things that really resonated with me with that last topic is that we were talking about Tyler Perry and Oprah's ability to kind of leverage their economic status to focus on this social issue, like this Black issue. And with that in mind, we really enjoy taking the time on this show to highlight economic advancements for our community. Wealth building is the center of what we do here. It is really important that we have the ability to focus on our own financial freedom. So I want to open it up to my cryptocurrency magi, my two big brothers who are able to provide a little more insight about some things that have happened in economics, specifically Jay-Z and all that he has experienced. And then y'all wasn't gonna tell me Bitcoin hit 50K.
Not only that, but
60 ball.
About to say it's going. That's where it was.
It's gonna hit 100.
Facts.
Listen, that, and then you had an athlete, I forget his name, and you had a football player who basically put all his money into, or some of his money into Bitcoin and flipped it and like doubled it. But my favorite is LeBron, and he just bought a piece of the Red Sox. So all of that, let's talk. Go ahead, y'all can kick it off.
So let's get the boring part out the way. Can we get the boring part out the way? So it's quadruple witching. So what that means is that like all of the contracts or option contracts or long-term contracts for a lot of different assets expire on the same day, which is today. So that's like securities, futures, commodities, all of that stuff. So that happened today. Quadruple witching happens 4 times a year. It happens 4 times a year, and it's always kind of bad or whatever, or not really a good time in the market because there's a lot of volatility. But we've been getting smashed for the last month. Like if you were invested in stock for the last month, you've been getting smashed or whatever. So now that we got that out the way or whatever, y'all want to talk about Jay-Z?
Keep it rolling. Keep it rolling.
Okay,
whatever,
all right. So
Jay-Z,
what did he sell first? He sold a part ownership of the Ace of Spades or whatever.
50%, yeah.
Yeah, which was interesting because I remember when he rolled that out. We all remember when he rolled that out, and I think Budweiser paid for the rollout of that. That's when he first came back to rapping or whatever.
Yeah.
Dropped the "Show Me What You Got" or whatever video, or whatever, and that's when they kind of revealed that or whatever. Budweiser paid for all of that, so that's funny that he kind of finagled a liquor brand to launch another liquor brand that he just made 300 million off of or whatever, or just sold parts. I mean, he still owns a part of it. So that's dope. And he got like one of the highest luxury companies or brands or families, whatever you want to call it, conglomerates to buy it or whatever. I think that's dope. And then he sold Tidal, which means that I don't actually think Tidal is better than Apple Music, but I've been paying for a Tidal because it was, a black man owned it or whatever. So I'm going to be canceling Tidal. I may be canceling Tidal pretty soon or whatever. But he sold a partial payment of that. And his homeboy Jack Dorsey owns Twitter and what is it, Square?
Yeah.
And he sold a big portion of it to Square for another 300 million or whatever. And he's on the board. I'm gonna let you take it from here, Dwayne, or whoever wants to take it from there though.
No, I mean I think you summed it up. He was making power moves. I think Jay. One of my I'll transition this way. One of my favorite lines in a song of Kanye is "Touch the Sky." He said, "Touch the sky." He said, "Jay favorite line, dog in due time." Now he look at me like, "Damn, dog, you where I am." So as we saw Jay-Z make all those great moves, we see Mr. Yeezy just jump over Jumpman and get an estimated net worth of 6.3 billion. And so to be a Yeezy fan from back in the day, I think it says a lot.
I need them numbers vetted though. I need them numbers vetted. Sorry.
I ain't gonna lie, I need it vetted too.
Okay, I will say that. I will say that too. So let's make sure we vet everybody's numbers too, though. So if we go vetting his, let's vet everybody's and make sure it's right.
Well, dog getting cash. So.
But then the second thing though, I think what it speaks larger to is we've mentioned all of this money. We've talked about Oprah and her access, Tyler and his access, Kanye and Jay and their access. And we're talking about people who are reaching billionaire status. And so we're seeing people who use, urban entertainment leverage it for billions. I wonder, in that same respect, we talk about what the market is doing. We talk about, what tech is doing. I wonder, what does this look like as we start to see these billionaires rise up? Does that mean we start to see more venture going out to companies that we can build more of these? Are we going to see more opportunities and more funds built so we can have more access to capital, which we say is a very important thing in our community? So we are seeing the bags, and it's coming from entertainment. Can we turn that entertainment money into stock money, into tech money? How can we start to, now we can't say we ain't got no money. We just talked about 4 different billionaires, all from entertainment, all from this generation or these last couple generations. So I think I'm very excited about what it looks like to understand that we're into money more. We're into the market more. We're understanding how to flip this shit a lot more. And so I see a future for us as African-American people to be a lot brighter because we have a lot more people to look at who know the rules and can play it. Yeah. So I just wonder, how does entertainment money turn into stock money, turn into tech money, turn into real estate money, turn into political capital? So I just wonder, how do we leverage all this good shit?
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think point to your leverage is we have to first start by giving artists full control. You saw Anita Baker just came out last week and said, don't stream my music, I need my masters. And I think that Jay-Z with Tidal, Rich, keep your Tidal, because I'm rocking with Tidal. I don't even got Apple. I think that he's the point, like you remember in one of his songs, he says he's going to bust it up, right? So I think that he's trying to do that. Like he makes a lot of lyrical comments about even in What's Free, like I'm trying to get you out from your masters kind of thing, and uses that as a synonym to masters, right? So I think that is one way to do that. Like, how do we allow, if we are having major success in the creative realm, then how do we allow people to actually own their art and not be new neo slaves to the record industry, especially with the access that we have now?
That's a layup, right? Because Phaedra actually said, let's talk about crypto and the technology and stuff like that. So going back to it's funny because I'm not going back to Square and Tidal and what people have been talking about, like in the Clubhouse hallways or whatever, and cryptocurrencies, is the reason that Square has so much bread is because they allowed people to buy Bitcoin, and which is a digital token, right? So some of the thoughts is that they're going to leverage Tidal to be able to pay artists more directly through Tidal or whatever, through those digital cryptos or whatever, right, through these tokens. So that's something that's kind of interesting or whatever. So that is good that you guys kind of brought it back to that. The second part is with I know we said we wanted to see an audit on Kanye's numbers or whatever, even though we really don't care because he ain't, he gonna pay who he pay or who he doesn't pay, but that's another topic for another show as far as Sunday service. But he is probably the main person that has been screaming at the top of his lungs about ownership. I mean, everybody talks about ownership, but Kanye's different, where he literally screams about this or whatever, or will tweet 1,000 times. So it's this cryptocurrency, and we all need to get into it. Actually just got played earlier on it or whatever, but it's called NFT, and it's called non-fungible tokens. And basically it's a token or a technology that allows artists or creatives to make money from their creations or whatever, and not get stolen. So Mark Cuban has been screaming about it a lot. Gary Vee has been talking about it or whatever. Like somebody just sold a tweet from a long time ago for like over $1 million. I actually was just on NBA.com earlier because they have this thing called NBA Top Shots, which is it's kind of like a video of NBA player doing a move or dunking, but it's kind of like a trading card at the same time, and it's a value. So that's kind of one way that speaks directly to what Patrice was just saying, as far as how artists can kind of own more of their creations or whatever. It's through cryptocurrencies and non-fungible tokens. Look up NFT. Everybody look up NFT. We should be on the beginning of this or whatever. they'll sell these packs for $9 to anywhere from $200, and they'll have like 3 cards or 3 moments in them, and they're worth more money. My boy just bought one for $200 today, and they're selling them on eBay for like $5,000. So,
wow, that's crazy. The main thing I heard there was agency. So the ability for you to make decisions about your body and your future, whether that be with your finances or your ability to sell your art or your intellectual property. And along that same vein, we really want to talk about political power. So that is your political agency. An election year is upon us, ladies and gentlemen. And as we look forward, we really want to talk about some of the things that have gone forward. Georgia is on our mind again. For those of you who don't know, there's been some recent issues regarding voter suppression. And then on a more national scale, we really want to talk about President Biden's George Floyd legislation. So I want to open the floor for my brothers and sisters to talk, kind of give their feedback about how they feel that we're revisiting this topic yet again in the year 2021.
I mean, we got a resident policy expert, so, you know, I'm willing
yes.
to,
I'm not the expert. Dwayne, you're the expert.
Okay, so I'll say this. I'll gladly take that. So I think, you know, by and large, and I want to speak to this kind of more on a general sense. So since the 2020 elections, ours included, every state has been trying to find a way to figure out how not to get so many people out next time. That's kind of their job. So around the state, legislatures are taking up legislation that limits absentees, when they can be counted, what you're going to do with the voter rolls, all kind of things. So across the country, things are happening. And I think that, but the difference this time is those same networks that drove all that voting to happen in 2020, those networks are still in place. So as we are, as they're looking to dismantle, you have the Stacey Abrams of the world and their voting expertise on how to reestablish these connections in community. Though, you know, that stuff is happening, they're still coming for our head. So, you know, just by and large, this is happening across the country. I think that it was a response that a lot of people kind of knew was going to happen. And it's something that I think that while you can never bet against, you know, all of these different state governments, the only thing that gives me, you know, hope is that these networks that just pulled everybody out to vote in 2020 are still in play. And there's funding mechanisms to make sure that they still can do the work that they need to do, even in an off year nationally and however that state looks. So that's just what I wanted to offer for that.
I do want to piggyback off of you, Dwayne. I want to provide a historical context, and I want to provide a couple of policy things, right? So one, there are some Democrats who have been saying the Voting Rights Act had been gutted, and they have been pushing for a new act, or the act to be renamed after the late Congressman John Lewis. So that is one issue. But it's interesting, the historical context, and we just talked about this week with Dr. Tolson. Dr. Tolson wrote a piece in CPAR's journal where he explained pre-Reconstruction and during Reconstruction the significant amount of Black elected officials, right? Just a historical thing that I think we know. We understand that there was a nice amount, probably more elected officials during Reconstruction, Black elected officials during Reconstruction than there were in the 60s, 70s, and even potentially currently, even though we have 59 CPC members now. So he noted that because of that intensity, there was a response by white folks to undermine the political power of Black people, to the point to where you did not see another Black elected official until or in a federal space until he notes 1990 with the governor of Virginia in 1990. And he talks about the Kovacs massacre, which took place right after Reconstruction, where all of these Black elected officials, basically these scare tactics, these intimidation tactics that white people led out of fear of losing political power. And I asked him on Wednesday, we did IG Live, and I said, well, how is that similar to what you saw on Capitol Hill on January 6th. It's extremely similar that every time there is a concerted effort for Black political power, there is a response where white people feel threatened. They feel the slippage of power. And then you also see a high level of diversity in the Biden administration, right? So the Biden administration does not look like white America, and it shouldn't. But you have the first Native American as the Secretary of the Interior. You have a Chicano Latino as the Education Secretary. You have Ms. Fudge, who got us together yesterday, in her seat in the administration. So just you have a Black Secretary of Defense. I mean, come on now. Think about how folks feel around that level of diversity in seats of power. And I think if you consider history, there is a response where when you feel threatened that you do not look like the people in power, there's a different level of your insecurity begins to bubble up, and then you start going and doing things like domestic terrorists do.
And I think on that note, it brings us to a close. I want to highlight something that Dr. Johnson said, and that is we are now seeing a national executive cabinet that looks a little bit, not exactly like the country, but a little bit more like our country. So I ask that you all keep that in mind. To our City of Detroit listeners, you are in the middle of an election year. Start listening to the politicians who are coming before you. We will be happy to talk to you next month. Thank you again for all of our subscribers. Feel free to follow us on Instagram at NextNarrative313. Phaedra, Patrice, Richard, and Dwayne signing off.